This chapter of DanDaDan got so dark very fast. And not only did we see just how far the main orchestrator and central antagonist of the entire Kozuka Knife saga is willing to go to get what they deem the id cosmos, we also see just how deep and convoluted this plan has been, and how much 4D chess is truly being played in order for the central antagonist, Count Saint Germain. It's completely concrete obvious at this point, is in dire need of apparently Momo's power. And going back into all of the attacks and all of the different events that have occurred ever since we finished the Fairy Tail card arc, it's all beginning to make sense. And again, point back to it being undeniable that Count Saint Germain, Mr. Sanjome, whether they are the same person, whether they're two different entities that look alike that are collaborating, now with the information that we get in regards to the main orchestrator talking to Miss Adachi when she goes to drop off this power that she stole from Mr. Murakami, we find out that this id cosmos is what Count Saint Germain is searching for. And it may potentially just be in Momo Ayase, or she might be this direct object that he's referring to. And the reason why I say it contextualizes a lot of the things that have happened so far is because some of the attacks that occurred, we weren't really sure why. They didn't make much sense in the very beginning of when they were all happening. Imagine Psycho Ayase getting attacked. As far as we know, at least, Psycho doesn't really have any kind of yokai abilities to have stolen. Although the Iron Bull and Jiangshi were trying to force Seiko to submit her powers. And then we also have the most recent attack with Heisei and the Jet Booster Cur going after Okarun and Kingta, who a lot of people were throwing shade at the idea that this can't be Saint Germain, because if it was Saint Germain, he would know that Okarun doesn't have his powers. But now we have a whole nother layer of knowledge that makes all of these prior inconsistencies make sense. The id cosmos is something that Count Saint Germain describes as, or at least what we assume to be Count Saint Germain. I don't want to outright say it yet because I could be proven wrong. The reason Miss Adachi has to be ejected from the group, not because she went against Count Saint Germain's wishes. The main orchestrator says the reason why she needs to be ejected is because she does not have the guts. We can go back to Mr. Murakami's defeat, right? Miss Adachi's like, hey, well, like, no, I was able to do it. I stole his power. He's like, no, don't cap. Miss Adachi only got that power because Mr. Murakami said, hey, please, you know what, like, I'll surrender my power, like, please help me. And she was like, oh yeah, surrender your power and I'll help you, I promise. And again, she happened to come across that by happenstance and just being in the right place at the right time. And because at the end of the day, even despite the fact that Mr. Murakami was probably about to assault her, she was still willing to see a person in need of help and help them, even if it meant stealing their powers. He got defeated and she just ended up with the power. She tried to take the glory for that. And again, that isn't necessarily the issue. The issue is the fact that she doesn't have what this orchestrator deems as the ability to destroy someone to the purest sense of their weakness. And the problem is this id cosmos that Count Saint Germain describes. We get a direct panel of Momo when this orchestrator describes it. Someone that does not fear death and has a marvelous power. In order to defeat this person, you have to attack the people around them because their lives are worth risking in a sense. And we actually get the perfect comparison panel here with Momo when she destroyed Hoster, the space manipulation cur. This proved that Momo doesn't fear death. She's willing to take risks because she trusts in herself and her allies. And then again, you start going back and everything makes sense. The main targets in all of this have mostly been people close to Momo. Yes, the Fairy Tail card back in the day was something that Count Saint Germain clearly had his sights set on, but we see here that he's using the Fairy Tail card and giving that power to others in his, little army that he's been gaining in order to fight against Momo and target Momo. But because Momo can't be targeted and beaten down in a normal fight setting, Count Saint Germain has to target all the other people around her, her friends, steal her friends' power, hurt her friends, and defeat them. Which is why, again, Seiko and her friends were attacked, despite Seiko potentially not really having any powers to steal. I just want to mention, Officer Bega has, for such a small little cameo in the last arc, become one of my favorite characters, and I quite literally was so excited to see him step in and save Miss Adachi from what might have been one of the scariest and, again, darkest moments in DanDaDan, watching her get bludgeoned to death by this fucking man in a mask with a suitcase who clearly does not give a single fuck about anything besides ushering in whatever Count Saint Germain plans to do. Officer Bega thankfully steps in and saves her, and Officer Bega is so badass that even this guy who has the fairy tale card as a yokai ability says, this isn't gonna work on this guy. I need to skedaddle and run away right now because I can't win. Which, again, no powers, just a fucking good and honest policeman. Which some people might be confused why it won't work, but Officer Bega can stop the fairy tale card mind control because it works on a person's guilt, whereas Officer Bega, despite having, you know, his whole family be murdered, he has still risen above that and even passed that kind of philosophy on to Zuma, which is how Zuma was able to break out of the fairy tale card's mind control. We see that Koki, Ira, Rin, all these people with Okarun and Kingta reunite as they get Heisei and at least try to, you know, I guess bring him to safety. And we do cut to Momo, and we even have an even bigger problem rising up with the fact that as Momo's curse progresses and gets further, the people around her are slowly beginning to lose sight of her and forget her. And despite the fact that, sure, Gigi can still see her, Gigi is her childhood friend, Gigi has known her for all her life. Of course, he'd still be able to remember her and see her, whereas Vamola, not really that much of a length of time. It makes sense that she would already have that memory erased. And if these memories get erased, having Momo lose literally all of the people closest to her in that darkest and moment of despair, where the human heart is wrenched and pulled and has no chance of even seeing any kind of logic as an id cosmos would be. Wouldn't Momo's instinct to be, I want all of this to end, I want all of this to stop, I will do anything in my power to stop this? And after all of the damage is done, after all of her allies are hurt and injured and getting destroyed by the yokai assassins that Count Saint Germain has sent, only then will the man of the hour appear right before Momo and say, hey, I can make this all go away. Just give me your powers and admit defeat. That's just my guess. Who knows? But in my opinion, this chapter was not only a very just insane, dark, you know, does anyone count pages as they're reading and go, how much is left? I don't want this to end, because this, like, DanDaDan's story has been so good lately. And this is just another step into the amazing results of what might be this Kozuka knife saga, because there's so much left to go through and we are only getting started and just barely beginning to tip our little toesies into the layers and layers of 4D plotting that this main villain, whoever he may be, has set up. But guys, just know I'll be here every single freaking week talking about this series because I love DanDaDan, and I promise you, you can count on me every week to bring that sweet content to you. Check out some of the extra DanDaDan content that I've got about Seiko, about Count Saint Germain himself even, or maybe feel free to check out the main channel if you want to see me stream Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, or anything else, guys. I sincerely appreciate you getting this far into the video. Hit that like button if you haven't already. Don't forget, and I'll see you guys in the next DanDaDan video. Peace, 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 peace.